Here's some data comparison for a traditional versus 4x4 schedules, and going to use some stuff by the U.S. News and World Report, and this is the 2025-2026 school year rankings that you can find online. The California ranking for San Diego Unified Schools, over 1,200 students. Here's some that will compare the ones that are using 4x4 schedule and going to compare them to the non-pilot schools, the 5 schools that are currently using traditional schedules. So the ones currently using 4x4, there's the schools and there's their rankings out of, it's over 1,600 high schools. And then the traditional schedule, here's the 5 that are currently using traditional schedule that are non-piloted for the 4x4. And you could see a drastic difference in the rankings of those schools. So what are these rankings based on? Well, they're based on college readiness, state assessments, underserved student performance on those assessments, college curriculum breadth, and graduation rate. So let's look at some of these things. An example scorecard that a school would get would look like this, with the overall rating at the top and the individual ratings that can be comparable to other schools. So let's start by comparing AP statistics. College students, we know this fact, that college students who took AP classes in high school are 2 times more likely to complete a 4-year college degree compared to college students who did not take AP classes in high school. So that taking AP classes is very important. So if you look at the data for the 4x4s and the traditionals, we see a drastic difference in the amount that are taking the AP classes, and also for the ones that are passing, which also improves. If you pass an AP course, you're even more likely to get a 4-year college degree. So in the traditional, there's only 148 hours of class time before the exam. But in a 4x4, it's even less. It's 127 hours if you have a fall class, and it's only 105 hours if you have the spring class before the assessment, before the AP exams happen. And with the fall semester, you got 5 months between when your class ends and when your exam happens. So those are problems with the 4x4. So here's a question. How will the 4x4 implementation ensure that AP scores will not decline with that significantly less class time? So you might hear, outside of school hours, we'll offer review sessions for fall semester AP classes and extra sessions for spring semester AP classes. And the student response that I got when I took a survey of 160 students was, I don't have time for that. So here's the question that was asked, and there's the results. Out of 160, most of them said, I don't have the time, and these kids don't. They don't have a lot of time outside of school to do extra things that would be required for the AP classes. So how will the 4x4 ensure that AP scores will not decline significantly? Well, you might hear this answer. During school hours, we'll offer review sessions for fall AP classes and extra classes for spring. Well, here's what a teacher responded to that. How can that be scheduled without taking time away from other classes? You can't make time. So you're going to have to take it away from other classes for that. And that is not going to be something that's easy to do scheduling either. So now let's go to that data and let's compare some math proficiency. We know that math proficiency is always fairly low in high schools, but you can see that the traditionals, those 5 non-piloted, have drastically higher math proficiency than the other ones. So how will the 4x4 implementation ensure that math scores will not decline? You might hear people say this. They'll give this answer. Although there's less overall time for instruction, the longer classes will allow for better depth of material. Well, if you listen to the students, they want shorter classes and more overall time to learn. As you can see from this survey that was taken, it was overwhelming. Of those 160 students, how many said, yeah, I want shorter class periods and more time to learn. And you might also hear, although there's less overall time for instruction, the longer classes will allow for better depth of material. And here would be a teacher response. More overall time is the key component to learning. More overall time allows for better depth than less overall time. So the 4x4 doesn't allow for better depth. It just makes kids sit in class for longer periods of time. So here's graduation rates for those high schools over 1,200. The 4x4 compared to traditional schedule. And the California state average is 87%. Only one of the 4x4s is over that. And they were very low on AP scores. So even though they graduate, their chances of graduating college are fairly low. And the traditional schedule, you can see all are well above that graduation rate. So a question might be, how will the 4x4 implementation ensure that graduation rates in SDUSD will all be above the state average? Well, you might hear somebody say it'll be easier for students to make up failed classes in a 4x4 before graduation. Then graduation rates go up. Yeah, but a teacher response to that would be, there are credit recovery classes offered within regular school hours of a traditional schedule. We have those things. We don't need that additional classes. So with these glaring problems inherent in a 4x4, why demand a change from traditional? You might hear somebody say this: students tell us the number one improvement they want in high schools is more choice of classes. And students, their overwhelming response was, there are plenty of choices now. 5 other interests, I can choose to pursue them outside of school and not be forced into more during school. And here was the question in the survey that was given to students and what their responses were. Now, a good many, 35%, did respond that they would like more choices, but not at the cost of having to do all those extra classes in a 4x4 and having less time for classes. They wanted added to the traditional schedule. So what could be done then? Well, there's ways to increase selection of classes in traditional schedules historically. Get back to what we used to have. There's been many classes that have been removed from traditional schedules that can be put back in. So we can actually find ways to put classes back in that have been eliminated and give students back that choice. So with these glaring problems in a 4x4, why demand that change? Well, you might hear the district is looking for ways to save money because we pay teachers a living wage. That's nice. We need to live. We're teachers. If you offer more classes, though, you'll need more teachers, and that will cost more. Also, we have a teacher shortage. How are we preparing to fill the extra jobs necessary for additional offerings? And for your information, it's very likely the person making this statement, saying that pay a living wage to teachers and making it look like teachers are to blame here, they probably make a much higher salary than a teacher. So, and also whenever these issues are brought up, people will say, well, the 4x4 teachers just need better training to teach in a 4x4. Well, I'll tell you, teachers are well trained. We know how to teach, and that's why we have credentials and advanced degrees. Teachers are the experts with classroom teaching. Please listen to them. So a couple conclusions here. The problems with implementing a 4x4 will cause problems in schools that historically have not had problems. So you're going to cause damage to those schools. Individual sites right now currently have the choice to go to a 4x4 if they feel that that would be more effective for their population. Removing the option for choice and applying a one-size-fits-all solution, that's going to cause harm. And the statement, when it comes down to it, it's our decision and we'll do what we want, is not shared decision-making. Effective communication and shared decision-making between stakeholders will make our district better for our students, and that's what we want. Better for our students. Thank you for listening. I hope you pay attention to data and please do not vote to have all high schools in San Diego Unified School District go to a 4x4. Thank you very much.